If the mind isn't physical, then how can it affect the brain? Let's consider. Hello, philosophers. I'm Chico. Welcome to the Philosopher Show, where we consider the greatest questions of human history. Dualism is the idea that the mind and the body are two ontologically distinct kinds of things. The mind and the brain, two ontologically distinct kinds of things. And today we're going to look at a problem for dualism. First, let's consider a normal kind of causation. My hand causing the pencil to move. How does this happen? Well, first thing is that my hand has to be spatially contiguous with the pencil, right? I have to be touching the pencil, in other words. The two things have to be right next to each other. And secondly, there's some kind of energy that transfers from my hand to the pencil. So that's how my hand causes the pencil to move. But what causes my hand to move? We might be tempted to say that it's our mind. My mind tells my hand to move. But then think about that. Is the mind spatially contiguous with the hand? No, the mind isn't even spatial, right? The mind is a non-physical kind of a thing. So how can it cause the hand to move if it's not somewhere in space? If it's not like the hand right next to the pencil, how can it cause the hand to move? Secondly, in the pencil example, there was an energy transfer from hand to pencil, but there's no energy transfer from mind to hand. So although it's not impossible that the mind could cause the hand to move, it's at least mysterious. It's at least weird. It's not like the kinds of causation that we're used to. And that is the big problem. How do we explain the causation of the mind when it's nothing like the kind of causation that we're used to? At the very least, this is a plausible problem, right? I always wondered about this when I had a friend once that swore that she had a ghost in her house, that it would open up the windowsill every day, and she swore that this would happen, right? And I used to think, like, can a ghost open stuff, right? The ghost is not a physical thing, right? How does it open the window? I thought it just floats around, right? It can float through walls. So how is it that it can actually manipulate physical things? So if it's a non-physical thing, how is it the case that it can cause physical things to do things? One response we could have to the spatial contiguity criterion is that we do have examples in the physical world of causation that is not spatially contiguous. So, for example, spooky action at a distance, or quantum entanglement. Two particles can be entangled, and you act on one particle, and it will cause the other particle, which is at a great distance from the first particle, it'll affect some change in that second particle. So there is an example of some kind of causation that happens across a distance, right? So not spatially contiguous. And this even seems weirder than the idea of the mind causing the hand to move, because although the mind is not located at a specific space, it seems at least plausible that it could be present to a physical space. But the quantum entanglement is, just a huge distance and nothing between the gap. So that's even weirder. A response to the energy criterion, and I'm not saying that I like this. This is something that people give as a response, is that it could be the case that there is some kind of mental energy, and that mental energy is introduced into the causal chain. An objection to this is that this would go against the law of conservation of energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, which is a law that's used in science, and so scientists will be very upset. Some responses to this objection: first, it could be the case that there is an even exchange of mental energy for physical energy, so the law doesn't actually get broken. Second, it's actually the case that some scientists are changing this law based on consciousness's effect on quantum behavior. However, I will say that it's typically bad policy for a philosopher to change their philosophy based on what is like science is doing right now, because that changes dramatically. That's usually not something you're very secure on. So Usually you want to wait and see how everything shakes out before you start making philosophy based on it. So, and the third response is that these natural laws can be interpreted statistically. It could be the case that when we have a natural law like the conservation of energy, it's that we see something happening and it happens in a regular way. So we make a probabilistic prediction that the same thing will continue to happen over and over again. And if that's the case, then this law is a probabilistic one, right? It's not one that cannot be violated in any way. A further response that we can have to this problem in general is to say, the problem points to the mysteriousness of mind-matter causation. We might say, though, that it's just as mysterious that there is matter-matter causation. So here's a thought experiment given by philosopher David Hume. Imagine you see a cue ball and it's hit across the table and then hits the 8-ball, and the 8-ball goes into the corner pocket. Did you see the cue ball cause the 8-ball to move? Hume would say, no, you didn't. What you saw was the white ball move, stop, and then the black ball move, and then, stop wherever it landed. But you never actually saw the white ball cause the black ball to move. So you never actually saw causation in the first place. So how do we know that there's matter-matter causation in the first place? Well, you could argue that the only reason that we know that there is causation at all is because of mind-matter causation, right? It's because that we in our minds say, I want to do this. I want to lift my arm, and then the arm gets lifted. And we say, I did X and then Y happened. I caused Y to happen. Whereas when we see things in the physical world, all we see is regularity. We don't see the causation. We must attribute the causation to the regularity because we see in ourselves the causation that happens. So you could say that the mind-matter causation is closer to us, so better known to us than the matter-matter causation is. I will also say that this problem isn't equally a problem for all dualists. So for hylomorphists, this is actually not a problem in the first place. For hylomorphists, all physical objects, all physical things, including organisms, including humans and animals and things like that, are a matter-form composite. What that means is matter is the stuff that is made to be in a particular way, and the form is whatever it is that makes that matter to be the way that it is. And the form and the matter are two different principles that make up a physical object. And there are reasons that hylomorphists believe this, that are not related to the philosophy of mind, and I'll explain them in a future video. But what this tells us is, if the form is an immaterial, structuring of the material thing, the matter, then we already have an immaterial thing with the material thing. We already have our relationship set up, right? That the relationship is no longer mysterious. Like how is this non-physical thing going to come in here and manipulate a physical thing? Well, the physical thing just is both immaterial and material, right? It's just both of those things at the same time. So there's no more problem anymore. That's not much of an explanation, but again, I'll have a video on hylomorphism, maybe a couple videos on that, explaining exactly what it entails. But that's all for the mind-body interaction problem. If you have any questions or anything else you can think of, please don't hesitate to contact me in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.